When you create a brand new old school RuneScape account and finish Tutorial Island, you're dropped into Lumbridge with 18 items in your inventory. Nothing special. A bronze sword, a tinderbox, a shield, some basic tools, and a handful of items worth almost nothing. Most players replace them within minutes and never think about them again. But on this account, one of the items on Tutorial Island, a seemingly worthless starter item, would eventually become one of the most important items in my entire journey toward defeating Phoseni's nightmare. The problem? Obtaining that item again and unlocking the ability to actually use it would eventually cost almost 500 hours. Last episode, we finally achieved something that felt almost impossible. After killing over 20,000 Chaos Druids and Chaos Druid warriors, cleaning every herb they dropped and squeezing every bit of experience possible from this chunk, we finally reached level 37 herb lore and created our first prayer potion. For a normal account, that isn't a huge achievement, but for this account it was months of progress, and now it was finally time to cash in our reward. Over the course of the grind we managed to collect 135 snapegrass, so today we're going to see exactly how much progress those ingredients can buy us. First level of the snapegrasses, level 39 and level 40. And honestly, that felt ridiculously fast. After spending months celebrating tiny experience drops from the cleaning herbs, gaining multiple herb lore levels in a matter of minutes almost felt wrong. But we're still a very long way from our eventual goal. To continue our journey toward Phoseni's nightmare, we ultimately need level 78 herb lore. And compare that to level 40, the mountain still looks enormous. So before returning to our red-robbed friends, I want a small change of scenery. Because as much as I love Chaos Druids, I was beginning to see them when I closed my eyes. So we paid a visit to some old friends, the Graded Demons. The goal here was simple: use up some runes, grab some magic experience, hopefully find an upgrade of 2. And most importantly, look at literally anything that wasn't a Chaos Druid. The demons didn't disappoint. We obtained here a Mithril Kite Shield, nice upgrade. Very welcome defensive upgrade. Level 50 magic. 54 prayer. And we got plenty of evidence that Great Demon still possesses the collective intelligence of a potato. At one point I found a safe spot so ridiculous that I'm still not convinced it should exist. But if they were willing to stand there and do nothing while I attack them, who am I to complain? Eventually the final runes was used. The last demon fell from this small grind. And our total kill count reached 135 kills. Not a massive grind by old school RuneScape standards. Let's go back to the bank to clean every grimy irit we collected. The herb lore levels continued to roll in. 42 herb lore. And before long we pushed our experience total beyond 47,000, not bad at all. More importantly, our new Mithril Kite Shield was about to face its first real test. Compared to the old Mithril Square Shield, the defense stats weren't even close. And since most of our life currently consists of being punched by Chaos Druids, more defense means more efficiency. So we headed back to our favorite tower, back to the endless sea of red ropes, back to the grind. But before we continue, there's something we need to talk about. Something I deliberately avoided explaining for a very long time. The lamps. Throughout this series you never saw me collect lamps of Book of Knowledge, but I've never properly explained why not, and what they're for. And that's because every single lamp has been part of a much bigger plan. A plan that ultimately leads to Phoseni's nightmare. Inside our chunk sits the Sisterhood Sanctuary. And inside that sanctuary are 2 seemingly ordinary resources. Iron rocks and coal rocks. For the most accounts those rocks aren't worth a second glance. For this account they're absolutely game changing. Because eventually those rocks will allow us to create some of the equipment we need for our nightmare ambitions. But first, we need the levels. The first obstacle was mining. To even begin this process, I needed level 50 mining. And since traditional training methods weren't available to me, the only realistic option was lamps. So every genie, every quiz random, every other random event that gave lamps, everything went into mining first. And eventually we got there. Level 50 mining. A first hurdle cleared. Problem solved. Or at least what I thought. Because mining ore is only half of the battle. I can smell them. I have access to superheat items. I have a reliable way to obtain nature runes. Chaos Druids may have ruined my sanity, but they have been generous with runes compared to other monsters. I even have access to an anvil. Everything seemed perfect. Until I realized one very important detail. I didn't have a hammer. And inside this chunk, the tiny little tool might as well feel like a twisted bow. Because I can't buy one. I can't pick one up. It's not gonna be dropped by a monster. And the only one way to obtain it are baby implings. Baby implings have a 1 in 10 chance of giving a hammer. Simple, easy, problem solved. Except there was one small issue. I couldn't catch baby implings. To catch them I needed level 27 hunter. And reaching level 27 hunter would require approximately 91 lamps. 91. Just let that number sink in for a second. 91 random event rewards. All for a chance of obtaining a hammer. Old school RuneScape is a completely normal game. So months ago, the plan changed a little bit. Mining was complete and a hunter became the new target. Every lamp from that moment onward will be dedicated to reaching level 27 hunter. And after months of random events, months of waiting and slowly crawling toward the goal, we're finally ready to make some progress. At the moment we're sitting at level 12 hunter. And in our inventory we have 10 fresh lamps waiting to be used. Let's see how far they can take us. Level 13 hunter. '14 hunter. '15 hunter. '16 hunter. And just like that, we're only 5 experience away from level 70. Still a long journey ahead. But for the first time, the goal is starting to feel real. Now that everyone's caught up on the master plan, it's time to return to our regularly scheduled Chaos Druid Massacre. With the lamp strategy finally revealed, there was only one thing left to do. Wait and grind, and wait some more. Because unlike most skills in old school RuneScape, I couldn't actively train Hunter. I couldn't set up traps, I couldn't catch up birds, I couldn't chase chimchompas. The only way forward was through random events. Which meant every single level would be determined by chance. And so began one of the strangest grinds I've ever done on this account. Because every lamp brought us one tiny step closer to our hammer. And every lamp brought us one tiny step closer to Vasani's nightmare. Simple, at least in theory. Not long after returning to the Druids, we quietly passed a couple of milestones. Level 53 magic. And a total level of 550 levels, nice. They both completely overshadowed by what I was actually looking for, random events, and thankfully they started showing up. An exam event pushed us to level 70 Hunter. One level closer, only 10 more to go. Then came a beekeeper, another lamp, we got Bob, Count Check, Surgeon Damien, another beekeeper, and another, and another. At this point I'm genuinely convinced the bees were coordinating their visits. And I don't know what kind of honey-based conspiracy was taking place inside this chunk, but they clearly wanted me to become a hunter. And honestly, I wasn't complaining, every lamb mattered. While hunting slowly crawled forward, the account itself continued progressing. A 212 key dropped, nice. 72 strength, 87 combat. Ooh, nice level 43 herblore. Several nice milestones arriving almost simultaneously. The herbal grind was slowly becoming less painful, the combat stats were climbing, and the account as a whole was beginning to feel stronger. Still nowhere nightmare ready, but stronger. Just one day at a time. And the random events kept rolling in. Forrester, Duke of Lumbridge, Surgeon Damien, Bob, another count check. At this point I was seeing these NPCs more often than actually players. And unlike some players, they're actually bots, at least these NPCs were helping. Level 18 Hunter, 90 Hunter, 20 Hunter. The goal was starting to become visible. The halfway point XP wise. Not close, but visible. And for the first time I could genuinely imagine reaching level 27, which was dangerous. Because of hope, if I got hope, it's often the most painful part of an old school RuneScape grind. And a few interesting moments broke up the monotony. One of them was a pair of earth implings floating around the chunk. Normally this wouldn't be very exciting, except for one tiny detail, I couldn't catch them. So I just stood there staring at them, like a child looking through a toy store window. Maybe one day I can buy them. Not long after that we crossed another major milestone. 1 million strength experience, a number that always feels significant. Especially considering how terrible our weaponry has been for the most of this account. We're basically achieving respectable combat stats while wielding equipment that looks like it belongs to a confused guard in Varrock, yet somehow it's working. The hunter grind also continued. 20 Hunter, 21 Hunter, 22 Hunter. Every random event became a celebration, every lamp felt meaningful, and then something appeared that perfectly summarized this account. A dragon impling, floating right through the chunk. One of the most valuable implings in the game, packed with incredible rewards. Potential account changing items, and all I could do was watch it fly away. I wasn't upset, okay, I was definitely upset. But at least I looked cool and showed me there was a high level spawn in this chunk. The account continued growing. 44 herblore, 88 combat, 75 strength level, 55 magic. A steady stream of progress. Nothing spectacular individually, but together they represented hundreds of hours of work. And that's one thing I've learned from this account. Progress doesn't always arrive in huge moments. Sometimes it's just 1,000 tiny victories stacked up together on each other. The random events never stopped. Beekeeper, Quizmaster, Mime, Forester, Count Check, Surgeon Damien, Genie, repeat, then repeat again, then probably one more time for good measure. By this point I've developed a completely normal emotional attachment to random events NPCs. Count Check became my favorite vampire in Mauritania. Surgeon Damien became my personal hunter trainer, and every genie was basically a lottery ticket. This account may not be healthy. Eventually we reached level 2500. Only 2 levels remained. After months of planning, waiting, the finish line was approaching. But before we could reach it, real life had other plans. And what happened next would completely change the progress of the account for a lot of months. The next clips you're about to see happened only few hours before everything changed. At the time I had no idea. I was happily grinding Chaos Druids, complaining about bots, missing level up notifications, and slowly itching towards my goals. completely unaware that the account was about to become the least important thing in my life. Because while I was grinding inside the Sisterhood Sanctuary, a much bigger problem was waiting for me outside the game. And unfortunately, the problem was on fire. By this point, the account was moving exactly as planned. Not quickly, definitely not efficiently, but steadily. The herbal levels were climbing, the combates were improving, Hunter was approaching level 27, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt like everything was finally coming together. Then, real life decided to remind me that it doesn't care about OSRS progress. The clips you're watching right now were recorded only a few hours before everything changed. I was doing exactly what I've been doing for months. Killing Chaos Druids. Collecting herbs, missing up level notification because I was distracted, complaining about the bots, the usual. I even had a nice interaction with a viewer who recognized me and asked the question I get all the time: when are we starting for Sandy's Nightmare? I laughed and told him hopefully soon. At the time I genuinely believed it. I had plans, goals, an entire roadmap laid out. And then my house had other ideas. My wife and I unexpectedly host a level 99 fire making party. And unfortunately, this wasn't the RuneScape version. A fire broke out between the ground floor ceiling and the first floor of our house. I happened to be homesick that day. When I noticed what was happening, I reached immediately and started breaking through the ceiling to reach the fire. Thankfully, I managed to slow it down before it spread further. But when the fire brigade arrived, they discovered multiple hotspots hidden inside the structure. At that point, there was no safe way to leave things untouched. They had to tear everything open. Ceilings, walls, large sections of the house. Anything that could potentially hide fire. And while I'm incredibly grateful nobody got hurt, the damage was massive. Suddenly, RuneScape didn't matter anymore. The account didn't matter. The videos didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was rebuilding our lives. For nearly 3 months I couldn't access my computer. There was no progress, no recordings, no editing, nothing. Just insurance paperwork and stress. Because of the insurance claim I couldn't start rebuilding my house yet. The insurance process itself took months. And even when the pair had finally arrived, they covered far less than we hoped. So rebuilding became a slow process. One room at a time, one repair at a time, one problem at a time. When I eventually returned to the account, things looked very different. I wasn't sitting in my normal setup. My old microphone was gone. Parts of my equipment were gone. The house still wasn't finished, and even while recording this episode today, we're still working to rebuild everything. But eventually, I reached the point where I could finally log back in. And honestly, after everything that happened, seeing my character standing exactly where I left it felt strangely comforting. The grind was still waiting, the goals were still there, and for a little while each evening I could focus on something simple again. Click monster, get experience, and repeat. So we returned to the Chaos Druids, because apparently I hadn't suffered enough already, and almost immediately the random events welcomed me back. A beekeeper, of course. I generally think these things can smell desperation. The moment I needed hunt experience, they started spawning everywhere. And after months of waiting, months of planning, months of pain, the moment finally arrived. A genie appeared. Just another random event, another lamp. At least that's what it looked like. But when we robbed the lamp and claimed the experience, everything changed. Level 27 Hunter. Goal achieved. Finally, after what felt like forever. The requirement was complete. The account could now catch baby implings, which meant we're finally ready for the next stage of the plan. Obtaining the hammer. The tiny little starter item that somehow managed to become one of the most complicated grinds on the entire account. Now theoretically, this should be easy. Baby implings have 1 in 10 chance of dropping a hammer. 1 in 10. Those are fantastic odds. This should take minutes, maybe an hour. Maybe 2 if we're unlucky, right? Right? So naturally the first baby implings gave me a chisel. Not ideal, but that's okay. We waited months already, what's a little bit more waiting? Back to the druids, back to the grind. Back to watching every impling that entered the chunk like a hawk. Every time I saw one on my minimap, my heart rate increased. Every time it wasn't a baby impling, I felt disappointment. And every time it was a baby impling, I prepared myself for another disappointment. This account has trained me well. A few wished me good luck, and honestly, I needed it. Because after all the preparation, all this waiting, I was starting to realize something. The hardest part of RuneScape isn't grinding, it's being close to finishing a grind. When the goal is far away, you don't think about it, you just keep going. But when the finish line is right in front of you, every failure feels 10 times worse. And then it happened. The moment I spent months preparing for, where their entire hunter grind existed for. Of course, I wasn't recording, because naturally I wasn't. I spotted the baby impling while traveling back towards the druids. I just clicked on it, caught it, opened the jar and immediately received the hammer. The single most important baby impling catch on the account. And I forgot to press record. Outstanding content creation. Truly professional. Thankfully, the chat box doesn't lie. You can clearly see the reward sitting there. Proof that it happened. Proof that after months of preparation the hammer was finally ours. And honestly, I didn't even take care that I missed the footage. I was just too relieved. Because it wasn't just a hammer. It represented hundreds of random events. Hours, planning, an enormous roadblock finally removed. For the first time in a very long time, the account felt like I was moving again. The mining requirement was complete. The hunter requirement was complete. The hammer requirement was complete. 3 major obstacles gone. But there was still one problem. A hammer alone doesn't let us smith anything. To actually use it, we still need smithing levels. And unlike hunter, we had absolutely no intentions of training smithing normally. The lamps had a new destination. A new skill, a new grind, a new small mountain to climb. The good news, this one wouldn't take 91 lamps. The bad news, it would still take a ridiculous amount. Welcome back to the Random Event Simulator. Again. After months of planning, hundreds of random events, 91 hunter lamps, and one baby impling that refused to be recorded, we finally had the hammer. The tiny little item that started this entire journey. But as in tradition on this account, solving one problem immediately revealed another. Because owning a hammer doesn't magically give you smithing levels. And unfortunately, level 1 smithing isn't exactly useful. So it was time to begin yet another lamp grind. Thankfully this one was significantly shorter, at least by my standards. Every random event from this point onward had a new purpose, smithing. Everything would now be invested into reaching that level 15 smithing. The final requirement before we could begin processing our own metal bars. And honestly, after spending of months staring at hunter lamps, seeing experience go into different skill felt refreshing. At this point I generally think my account has become a random event attraction. Players visit the Grand Exchange, my character apparently attracts magical creatures and strange old men. The levels slowly started arriving. Level 2, Level 3, Level 4, 1 lamp at a time. Meanwhile the account continued processing in the background. 46 herb lore, 68 defense, 69 defense, 70 defense, 92 combat, strength continued climbing, prayer continued climbing, and the chaos druids continue wondering why I hadn't left them alone after all these months. Honestly, I'm starting to wonder the same thing. One thing that became increasingly clear during the grind was just how many random events were actually completed. At the beginning of the count they felt insignificant, little distractions, small bonuses, but now they had become one of the most valuable resources available to us. Every lamp and book mattered. And as the smithing levels accumulated, I started thinking about just how absurd this journey had been. To unlock mining and smithing on this account we needed level 15 mining, level 27 hunter and level 15 smithing. Just simple requirements. On a normal account, maybe a few hours. On this account, hundreds of hours. Because every single level had been earned through random events. The grind continued. 47 herb lore, 77 strength, 78 strength, 79 strength, 24 fishing, 25 fishing, all almost entirely passive progress from months of grinding. At one point I even missed level 75 hit points, which shouldn't surprise anyone anymore. I've developed a remarkable talent for missing important moments while recording. It's honestly impressive. The random events kept flowing. A baby impling gave us a needle, another one gave us a woo, another gave us a hard letter, and every single one felt like the game was mocking me. With all that effort to unlock baby implings, they suddenly became everywhere. Now that I no longer desperately needed them, classic RuneScape. Then came one of the biggest milestones of the entire episode. Level 50 Herbro already. A huge achievement for the account. We're still a long way from level 78, but level 50 represents something important. Progress. Real progress. The kind of progress that once felt impossible. Not long ago we were celebrating level 37. Now we're already pushing into the 50s. Slowly but surely the account is becoming stronger, and eventually those levels will become the foundation for our nightmare ambitions. The final smithing level began arriving. 11 smithing. Level 12 smithing. Level 13, level 14, and then, after months of preparation again, the final lamp event, the final requirement, we hit level 15 smithing. We did it. Smithing unlocked. Hunter unlocked. Mining unlocked. Every prerequisite completed. The entire lamp strategy was finally finished, and when I say finally, I really mean finally. If we total everything up, this account invested approximately 175 lamps into unlocking these requirements. 175. That number is ridiculous. And that's before counting all the exam events and boxes of knowledge. If we estimate an average random event rate, that means we likely encountered well over 500 random events to reach to this point. At least 500. All because I just needed a hammer. Old school RuneScape is a perfectly reasonable game. Now for the first time ever, we could actually use those iron and coal rocks inside the Sisterhood Sanctuary. The moment I've been planning for has arrived. Our first real mining experience. No lamps, no shortcuts, no random events, just a pickaxe, a rock and progress. I felt strangely satisfying. Something about seeing mining experience appear naturally after all this time made the entire grind feel worth it. The process itself was simple. Mine iron, superheat the ore, create bars and repeat. Over and over again. The familiar RuneScape cycle. But unlike many grinds in the series, every inventory felt meaningful, because every bar represented another step forward. Every bar represented another piece of preparation for the future, and every bar brought us closer to our first major equipment upgrade. The nature runes disappeared quickly, much quicker than I expected. Inventory after inventory, bar after bar. Eventually we reached the point where our rune supply was almost completely exhausted. Only a handful remained. And with our final bars completed, we found ourselves just short of the smithing level needed to create steel knives. Just a little bit short. Close enough to be annoying, far enough away to matter. The perfect RuneScape distance. So we improvised. A few iron knives, a handful of extra bars, one final push, and finally we hit level 37 smithing. We got steel knives unlocked. At last. Months of preparation leading to a skill unlock that most accounts achieve before leaving the early game. Beautiful. With the requirement complete, we transport every remaining steel bar into knives. And while the knives themselves were useful, they were the main prize. And if you ask where the knives for, the real Kuseni nightmare knowers know exactly why I need the knives. And next episode we're gonna explain that in detail, when we're gonna look at our gear a little bit more for our Forseni goal. If we look at the bunk now, it's easy to focus on the items. The hammer, the steel bars, the knives, the maces, but that's not really what the grind was about. The grind was about possibilities. Months ago these goals felt impossible. Mining felt impossible, hunter, smithing, even obtaining a simple hammer. But yet somehow we're here. One requirement at a time, one absurd grind at a time. Before ending the episode, I want to say thank you. The past half year was easily been one of the most difficult periods of my life. The fire, the rebuilding, the insurance battles, living outside our home, replacing equipment, trying to continue creating content while everything around us felt chaotic. And while writing this episode, another painful chapter arrived. We lost our dog. He was part of our family for almost 10 years and reached nearly 14 years old, and losing him was been incredibly difficult. So, if this episode took longer than expected, that's why. Life simply happened a lot. But despite everything, the account is still alive, the journey is still alive, and the dream of defeating Fosenni's nightmare is still alive. We're not there yet, not even close. For the first time in a very long time, I can actually see the path, and that's enough. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for sticking around to all of this. Sleep well.